we have to kind of infer our own lessons into some of the suffering that we've gone through, because what I was just talking about is like, sometimes the lessons aren't obvious, but they're there. Someone's trying to, it's like a Mr. Miyagi type thing where right. What is going on? Welcome to another episode of the Risen Fallen podcast. I am your host, Mark Hendrickson. And if you're brand new to this podcast, if you've never listened to this or watched this before, then what you can expect is open and authentic conversations about things like mental health, self-development, and how to get your life moving in the right direction. If you're feeling like you're not happy with where you are right now in your life, where you woke up this morning, where you swung your feet out of bed and put your feet on the ground, and you're not really happy with that. You're not happy with the person that you are, where you're at financially, in your love life, in your relationship, in your career, or anything like that. But at least having the confidence, knowing that you're getting 1% closer every single day, and along the way lifting other people up as well. And if you're not new to this podcast, if you're a returning listener, a returning viewer, a returning guest of this show, then thank you very much for coming back and supporting the cause, supporting the journey, and supporting the movement. And whether you're brand new to this show or not, I just want to say thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for joining us today on this beautiful Thursday. And I wanted to remind you that no matter what it is you are going through, you are not alone, and life can and will get better for you. And with all that being said, let's jump into the show. Happy Thursday morning if you're listening to the podcast version of this. Happy Thursday evening if you're watching this on YouTube. As you guys know, the show drops at 5 o'clock and 5 o'clock on Mondays and Thursdays. 5 a.m. for the audio version on podcast platforms, and 5 p.m. for the video version on YouTube. And we're rocking and rolling. I hope that you guys are doing well. I hope that everything's going well. I hope that your week is going well. I might start posting these on Rumble. I'm going to have to look into Rumble as well and see. I know that that's a kind of a growing platform with a weird stigma attached to it, but I might check it out as well. So this very well might be the very first episode on Rumble. So if you guys use Rumble or use that platform, then make sure you go and check it out there. I'm not really sure how the liking and commenting and subscribing works on there, but make sure you go and do that. Happy Thursday. Hope your week is going well. Week's going pretty well here. It is actually Sunday as I'm recording this. I'm trying to bust this out and get prepped for the week because there's a lot of, as the summer comes to an end and the fall comes to a beginning, there's a lot of different things that we got going on, going camping a couple times, just trying to make sure that I soak up as much of that as I possibly can. Wow, still doing 75 hard, a few weeks in, doing pretty well so far, getting my meals in, getting my exercise in, getting my water in, and staying away from the bad stuff. So just been working and working out pretty much all day, every day, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. I'm feeling really good. I'm definitely very sore, but I'm really enjoying this. Actually, this is probably the best round of 75 hard that I've ever done. Just because mentally, I feel like I'm in the best place I've been in while doing 75 hard. There's a lot less of the victimhood bitch voice in my head, just the whole like, oh fuck, why am I doing this, why me? There's a pretty clear vision of why I'm doing what I'm doing, and that's really helping me get through 75 hard. And that came from having to do it a few times with that victim bitch voice in my head, and now it's starting to slowly be alleviated. So that's pretty nice. I really enjoy that. And doing the daily reading is really helpful as well. since I started this quest in regards to self-development and mental health and trying to improve those things, and obviously the quest of learning more about how the brain works and how extraordinary people have overcome these types of things in the past, I really enjoy the whole reading because I suck at it. It's not something that I naturally like to do. I'm high energy, usually bouncing off the walls, and so for me to sit down and focus on one thing, like a book, and actually just like spend my time reading it is rather difficult for me. So not only do I get the benefit of gaining the knowledge that you get out of books, but I also get the advantage of working on the skills that I'm not naturally good at, which is sitting still and focusing on one thing at a time and deliberately making myself focus and pushing out distractions and finding ways to get myself to be able to sit still, whether that's, right after a workout, having to meditate and stretch and slow my breathing and heart rate down so I can actually focus on something. There's tons of different tactics, but I'm reading right now Never Finish by David Goggins, and he talks in that book, without spoiling too much, if you guys haven't checked out that book, I highly recommend it, but he talks about, without spoiling too much, about halfway through the book, there's this discussion that he has where he escapes his abusive father, and him and his mother and his brother kind of go off and seek refuge at his grandparents' house, and his grandpa is this like ex-military dude who just has him do like a military grade checklist every single day of chores around the house to kind of earn his keep. And he talks about just being so frustrated and having despised that list every single day, the wake up calls, the chores of mowing the lawn and raking the leaves and sweeping the porch and doing the dishes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and not understanding why his grandfather was the way he was, not understanding why there was this lack of empathy and lack of caring, and not being able to absorb the lessons that his grandpa was, whether intentional or not, trying to instill into him as a child, and not understanding why he was doing what he was doing. And I related a lot to that because, obviously my father was not abusive like his, and not a crook and a gangster and a physically abusive man. And I wasn't riddled with the same trauma that he was as a child, but I do remember as a kid being given, lists of chores to do on the weekends, after school, that kind of stuff, whether it was mow the lawn, wash my dad's truck, rake the leaves, shovel the snow. And then as I got older, I remember getting a job, like the first summer that I got a job was getting hired by my dad to just do labor on his construction sites and basically sweep up and carry tools to people, carry 2x4s around for people, carry bags of concrete around. And I was like their bitch. I just basically had to do anything that they didn't want to do, whether it was like dig a trench. I remember that was one of the first jobs I ever had, was upgrading we were upgrading a water main for a house in Vancouver, and I had to trench from the water supply of the house back to the city where the hookup was, and trench that all out so we could upgrade the water line and bring in a bigger pipe for it. But I just think back to all those times of working in construction and, having a list of things to do, which basically is the shittiest end of the stick that you can think of because it's all the stuff that you don't want to do. And then half the time when you do it, because you're some clueless kid, you do it wrong. And you're proud of your work, you like, okay, I did all this hard work and now someone's going to be proud of me. And they come around and they say, well, good job, buddy, but it's not done right. Back on the shovel and get it done again. Get it done the right way. And it can be rather frustrating. And it doesn't always come down to, physical labor. Sometimes, I've worked in different industries as well, working in sales and working in service, working in restaurants, being a server, and especially about being a salesman. There's so many times where a lot of your work goes unappreciated, or a lot of the work you didn't do properly. You don't get commission on a sale because you didn't 100% close them. They canceled their package, whatever it was. Like, there's so many times where, whether you're working in a physical laborious job or you're working in sales, or you're working in service, that you basically just have to do a ton of shit that nobody wants to do. You're being asked to do it. or being demanded or told to do it. And then you have to do it, even though you don't want to do it, with a smile on your face and be grateful for the opportunity. And you put your head down and you do the shit. And then someone tells you didn't do it good enough, and et cetera, et cetera. And it can be extremely demeaning, degrading, and confusing and frustrating. I remember there was one specific time, I think it was like the first time I had ever framed a bulkhead. I had done it before the plumber had run his lines through it. So I had to actually take it apart so he could run his lines, and then I rebuilt it. And then there was some, I think a gas line had to be put through like a month or two later. And so it was like, I had ended up building this one specific bulkhead probably 4 fucking times. And it was extremely frustrating. I got yelled at, I got laughed at, I got made fun of. But I also got to build a bulkhead 4 times, and by the end of it, it was a fucking great bulkhead. It was fucking perfect. So there's lots of times in life where, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is there's lots of times in life where the lessons that we're learning don't really make sense, or they're not really obvious. And a lot of the time, we won't even understand the lessons that we're going through until after we've gone through them. A lot of the times it's, you know, maybe a month after, or a few months after, or even a year, or maybe even a decade after, when we actually look back at the hard times that we went through and we think, you know, that was really shitty, and it was probably, like, at the time, the worst day of my life. But looking back at it now, I actually kind of, you know, look back at it with a smile and think about how that was actually a good time. You know, it was horrible, but it's funny that I made it through that. And it's funny that I went through that in the first place. There's a lot of times where I think about that. I was like, wow, it's actually kind of funny and weird that I actually got to go through that and made it to the other side. But, you know, a lot of the times it's extremely, like, people use hot topic words like traumatic or anything like that to go through these things. But when we look back at them, it's like kind of not a big deal after a few years or whatever time span is appropriate for you to get over the trauma of that. And then you look back and you're like, wow, that actually did teach me the value of developing a calloused hand, or a calloused mind, or a calloused heart, or, you know, developing some sort of, you know, strength to overcome that adversity that you're going through. And then sometimes, you know, we have to kind of infer our own lessons into some of the suffering that we've gone through, because, you know, what I was just talking about is, like, you know, sometimes the lessons aren't obvious, but they're there. You know, someone's trying to, you know, it's like a Mr. Miyagi type thing where, you know, and I remember, I'll give an example. The first time I worked in sales, I worked in a gym, and I sold gym memberships. You know, the type of dude that is. And basically, I sat on the phones all day, called people to get them to come in and check out the gym, and then asked them if they wanted to buy a membership, and then, you know, do my best to set them up with whatever worked best for them. So I remember the first month that I got a job there, They gave me a fat stack of papers. It was probably like 3 inches thick, which is, you know, daunting for a brand new salesman. And they said, all right, this is a list of people that have already quit and canceled their gym memberships. What I want you to do is call every name on this list one by one, and try and get them rejoined, get them to re-sign up with a new membership. And I was like, what the fuck? These people are literally already mad or pissed about their service. I don't know how this is going to work. And so I sat there all day and basically took the approach of just like calling these people and saying like, hey, how come you canceled? Why'd you quit? What was wrong? Is there anything that we can do better? Hey, we have some new management. What's going on? These are some new things that we're trying to do for the community. These are some new programs that we're trying to, you know, launch to make sure that your fitness and your experience is the best that it can possibly be. And that was literally all I did for the first like fucking few weeks of my job, was just like, you still got those papers? Keep pounding through them every single day when I showed up. And I'd be like, all right, did we get to do something new today? And they'd be like, are you done your list? Go to your office and fucking slam away. And so at the time, it was extremely frustrating and degrading. I was like, everyone else gets all these great leads. They get all these like people that are wanting to come and check out the gym. And there was like all these like fucking gimmies that were getting handed out to everybody else. And I remember sitting there in my office, like, fuck, I had like panic attack after panic attack of just like people screaming at me, yelling at me. And it was just like, why the fuck am I doing this? This is so shitty. I just show up every day and call people who don't want to be called. And looking back at it now, I can see the lesson that was there for me. I can see the lesson of being able to control a conversation and not come, with the energy of trying to badger or annoy someone, but to actually care about them and see like, hey, what was wrong? Is there anything that we can do better? And be able to reshape problems in my brain and be able to not dictate conversations, but to just be able to influence them a little bit better. And not only that, but just to have, develop the thick skin of overcoming the anticipation, the feeling right before you dial the phone, thinking, is this person going to yell at me? Is this person going to scream at me? Is this person going to be annoyed, busy, frustrated, all of the above? And shutting out all of those thoughts in your head and just thinking, I'm going to bring my best energy forward to this situation. I'm going to bring my best energy forward to this conversation and this engagement with another human being. I'm going to control what I can control. Kind of, we've been talking a lot about that recently on the podcast, but, sometimes the lessons are obscure. Sometimes the lessons are not obvious, and we have to kind of dig into it a little bit more and reflect on the things that we've gone through. And sometimes the lessons aren't there at all. Sometimes people are just going to be dicks to you. Sometimes there's going to be people and experiences in your life. Things are going to happen, and it's just going to be unfair. There's no lesson. There's no fucking Mr. Miyagi secret, like your wax off, wax on, and then it's teaching you special moves that are going to help you out. Sometimes it's just a bowl of shit. Like you just have to fucking sit down at the table with a big old spoon and a bib and fucking eat it. And that in and of itself can be your lesson. So sometimes there's going to be obscure lessons. Sometimes there's going to be no lessons, and you kind of have to infer your own. And then the very last situation that I find myself in all the time is sometimes it's not a task or a job you have to do, and sometimes it's just somebody telling you something that you're fucking up on. Sometimes it's a boss, a coworker, an instructor. Maybe you take a class or a sport, or maybe you do some sort of activity. Maybe it's your parents, maybe it's your grandparents, maybe an aunt and uncle, maybe it's some guy you just meet on a bus. I don't know. But sometimes we hear the right message at the right time, and it's something that we definitely need to hear, but we don't allow ourselves to absorb the lesson because we don't like how it's said to us. We don't like their tone of voice. We don't like the words they use. We don't like maybe when they're telling us. Maybe it's at the most inopportune time. And because we get stuck in our egos of, oh, this person didn't address me the way that I wanted to be addressed. Oh, this person didn't use the words that I like them to use. This person used a tone of voice which was offensive to me, and they used microaggressions. Sometimes we get so trapped in our own egos that the lesson we need in our lives is literally being presented to us on a platter. And it's like, fucking, here's the advice you need. Here's the lesson. And because we get so stuck in our egos and it's not delivered the right fucking way, we disregard it. We sometimes even get mad and we do the exact polar opposite. We have this rebellious nature of just being like, oh, you didn't deliver the message to me the way that I like to hear it, and so I'm not going to listen. And it's like, that's probably an indicator of a fragile ego. And I am fucking number one perpetrator of this. I tell, like, anytime my girlfriend gives me advice or anything like that, I'm like, I just don't like the way you said that. There was a couple words in there that were actually not grammatically correct, and I want to nitpick and say, like, all these different things. Oh, you don't understand my life. You don't understand the way I think. You don't understand my routine. You don't understand the same shit that goes on in your brain goes on in my brain as well. And like I said, it's a defense mechanism. It's ego, and it's human. Don't feel bad. Like I do it. I do it too. So I'm not trying to say that you're wrong if you do this, but I'm saying that it can hinder us in our progress for sure. And so if you feel yourself getting that defensive, oh, they don't understand me, maybe reflect on, where you're actually at in life and what they're trying to help you with. And maybe you didn't like the way they said it. Maybe you didn't like the way it was brought to you. You didn't like the way that it seemed aggressive, or you didn't like the time that they were doing it at. It was like an inopportune time. But if you're actively and cognitively pushing away help, advice, assistance, and lessons that you need to learn, especially lessons that are very relevant to the problems you're going through right now, it might be time to set the ego aside and be all ears and not tell people what advice you need. Because if you're struggling, if you're in a bad place in life and if you're struggling with something, you don't have the answer. Point blank. You don't fucking have the answer. Because if you had the answer, you wouldn't have the problem that you're dealing with right now. Unless the only other option there is unless you're not willing to do the work. And, when we're stagnant and we have that inertia of being still and stagnant and not moving forward, sometimes it takes a big fucking push to get you rolling in the right direction. And, sometimes a big fucking push hurts on impact, but you're pretty thankful for it after you've gained momentum in the right direction. And so that's all I wanted to talk about today. We're just hitting over 20 minutes here, and I don't want to take up too much of you guys' day. So happy Thursday. I hope you're doing well. I hope that this message resonates with you, or maybe someone needed to hear it. I hope that I was able to deliver it in a way that helped you or made sense to you or changed your perspective on it. And if you feel like I did all right today, please do share this content with somebody. Share this episode with them. Send it to them and say, hey, what do you think? Send it to 10 friends, whatever. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube, and check out Rumble if I can figure that out today. And I hope you're doing well. Rate 5 stars and leave a little review on podcast platforms. But other than that, I think that's a great place to end this. I hope you guys are doing well. And I will check in with you on Monday. Other than that, much love and peace out, you beautiful human beings. I love you all. Bye.